Freud says, suppose you don't know yourself. Where does that leave us? That makes the act of introspection radically ambiguous. What shall we do now? How are we going to interpret that raw data? Because we definitely have senses. We have fears and loves and hates and lusts and all kinds of emotions. How are we supposed to interpret that if we don't know it in any kind of certain way? If it's distorted, how are we going to find our way out of that labyrinth? Well, Freud works on this problem. And what he decides to do is to try and find the deep structure of the human soul, particularly the structure of the soul which we don't disclose to ourselves. And you can make the analogy back to Descartes. For Descartes, since your knowledge of your mind is transparent and obvious, the big problem then epistemologically is how do you find out about other minds? Right? Descartes has a real problem climbing out of his own shell of the psyche and finding out about how you feel and you feel and you feel. Very difficult. Well, Freud changes that problem. He says the problem isn't to know other minds, the problem is to know your own. But if you were to crack that code and find out how to know your own mind, that would also be the skeleton key to knowing other minds. So although he makes the Cartesian problem harder, if it is soluble for the self, it is soluble for all people. A great epistemological breakthrough if it works. Okay? It's an impressive achievement and a nice little intellectual gambit. Right? This is another reason why he's so influential. He's extremely imaginative, right? In a way that you can't directly expect of linear logical science. Now, what Freud wants to do is construct a scheme of translation between what the manifest content of your experiences are and the latent content. In other words, between the surface structure and the deep structure. If you have a dream about fighting Mike Tyson, well, that's the surface structure, but the latent structure of that may be that you're dreaming, you're displacing your feelings about your boss or about politics or about some other authority structure, and that what you're doing is symbolically re-representing something which causes you great anxiety. Well, what Freud thinks he can do is give us a kind of algorithm for the various kinds of transformations that the unconscious undergoes or makes itself undergo, which generate the manifest structure of our consciousness. So what it is then, from Freud's perspective, is that the self is a kind of a code. And that once you crack this code, then you can translate communicative behaviors that had not previously been thought of as being communicative, and you can look at communicative behavior like speech as being communicative in a new and different way. So Freud, like anybody, believes speech is a kind of communication. But what's great about this translation scheme is that it allows us to move from various kinds of behaviors which had previously been thought meaningless and to literally read them as being symbols. So if someone spends all day washing their hands, 15, 20, 30 times a day, they wash their hands, nobody gets that dirty.